my first 2 games were Harvest Moon DS and
Yeah.
Animal Crossing Wild World on the DS also.
OG stuff right there. Yeah. So you were a cozy gamer before we even had the name cozy gamers.
Still have the game guides.
Wow. Those are probably
Yeah.
worth some money.
What? Over my dead body. Hi, Middle Earthlings, and welcome to my humble home for the artists of the Tolkien sphere, aka the makers of Middle Earth. My name is María. I myself am a maker of many mediums, and today we have a very special guest. She is the art manager of Tales of the Shire, a new Lord of the Rings game where you get to play a hobbit experiencing life in the Shire. Mhairead Connor, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much for having me.
Of course, and welcome also to Ladle, our iconic crochet duck who has joined us on the couch today.
Ladle, our emotional support crochet duck here in the studio, also features in the game. She even has a little crocheted iron kind of, well, this is crocheted, but in the game, Neffy made her a little, helmet. So everyone would know whose duck she was.
We should make that a trend in real life. Everybody forge armor for your pets so they can be more easily identified. Mairead, for those of us, I would imagine most of us, who have never worked in the video game industry, can you very quickly walk me through what are the creative demands of an art manager on for a game like Tales of the Shire?
I do say it's a bit like cat herding sometimes, managing artists, but they're my favorite cats. I have a little bit of an arts practice myself, like we all do, kind of tutu away, on our like I write and play music and things like that. But my role here is to look after our, wonderful, crazy artists.
That's lovely. So I assume you've been here since the process began.
Lockdowns had finished in New Zealand. Well, the first round of them and after the pandemic, and we were back in the studio. It was that kind of quite strange time, afterwards.
Yeah.
We were thinking about like what games that we were kind of pitching ideas to each other and thinking about, the next project, like Animal Crossing meets Lord of the Rings. And, thus the idea was born. Like, it's one of those things that sort of feels so obvious when you say it. It's like,
Right.
yes, why haven't we done this before? A cozy game set in Middle Earth. Here we are a few years later and about to launch her out into the world. It's very nerve-wracking, but, we're very excited.
It absolutely is one of those things that in hindsight is so obvious because I think, so many of the games, which have been quite fun and well received, and there's a huge fan base for them, but they're all about get your sword out. Get your sword out and let's kill some orcs. Let's hunt some orc.
Yeah, yeah,
For people like me who, gosh, my first 2 games were Harvest Moon DS and
yeah.
Animal Crossing Wild World on the DS also.
I respect, yeah, that's OG stuff right there. Yeah. So you were a cozy gamer before we even had the name cozy gamers.
100%. Gosh, I had a partner who, when Stardew Valley came out, that was his first cozy game, and he
Yeah,
was yelling at me. He was like, "Don't put mods on. You haven't played the base game yet." And I was like, "You fool.
yeah,
I've been playing cozy games since you knew
yeah.
they existed." I'm in my childhood home right now, and I
Oh.
still have the game guides.
Wow. Those are probably
Yeah.
worth some money.
What? Not over my dead body. They're
Yeah.
never getting them from me.
But worth more than money, of course, yeah.
Have you played any cozy titles like Animal Crossing or anything like that?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and Nature Valley. I do believe that if hobbits played video games, they would be cozy game players because it's so aligned with their kind of what they love, food, gardening, decorating, all of that kind of stuff. It's like, yes, this is extremely hobbity.
It is quite hobbity, and you're right, there are a few different blueprints for cozy games. Some err more toward the relationship simulator side, some are more farming sim, some are all about interior decor. What was the process of looking at all of those possible blueprints and honing in on what feels hobbity? Like, what was your sort of metric for a hobbit feel?
Yeah, well, I think, for us, obviously, being Weta, the kind of source material, the books, Hobbit, all of Tolkien's writing is always what we come back to. You know, his descriptions of Hobbit life and, the things that hobbits did and all their kind of unique, virtues and foibles really like grounded us. I think that was our kind of primary sort of thing that we came back to. And they lent themselves so easily. You know, the more we researched and the more we got into it, the more we were like, I mean, this is a cozy game. A Hobbit's life is a cozy game. I know you've mentioned farming sims. I wouldn't say that we're exactly a farming sim. It's more kind of life sim. You know, we definitely have gardening and we have foraging, but it's not that kind of intense Stardew Valley kind of, harvest moon, like, like crop planting and all of that. We don't have animal husbandry. We do have animals, of course, our beautiful Lego. And, we have things, we have chickens, so we have, for eggs and things like that. Decorating and customization definitely was a very, core mechanic and obviously one of those things that's really important to cozy players. And so that's something we really lean into. You know, the first thing you do in the game is kind of customize the hobbit that you want to be to give, the player as much kind of expressive agency as we could whilst being true to, this world and the lore of this world.
Of course, because you not only, of course, you have all of Tolkien's works, but because you're Weta, you have y'all's visual language that you have developed for a quarter of a century. Was there ever a time you were considering departing from the established aesthetic, or you were like, we have this visual language of the Shire, we have all the blueprints, we have everything, we're going to pull from them?
Tolkien was, a great child's book writer. Wrote, obviously The Hobbit was intended, as a book for his or as stories for his son Christopher, I think it was. But he wrote many other children's books during his life. So I think that was one of those, I suppose, really creative kind of touchstones for us. And that was unique to us and able to be, our own kind of, I suppose, unique vision and, distinct from the many other beautiful kind of, visions of Middle Earth that have been created over the years. We did have a very, unique advantage in that. I mean, gosh, it's been 25 years that Weta has been kind of in Middle Earth, and there was an enormous amount to draw on already for us, the ability to be able to go and chat to some of the, original concept artists.
How wonderful to be able to play in the sandbox of the world that I identify as Middle Earth for sure. It was really delightful to see a little peek at the fellowship and the new NPCs. What is the process of developing a new character in in Tolkien's Shire 25 years later? You know, what does that creative process look like?
We start with the story, but we also, there's things like what are what are the mechanics that we want in the game. Games are a design-led medium. So obviously you're starting from, what are the core mechanics that we're wanting to explore? What do we think our players would enjoy? The art and the visualization and then the characters and things like that kind of flow out from that process. We wanted characters that had depth and backstory and people who were like huge fans of Middle Earth. There would be enough kind of texture and things there to be able to go, oh yes, because that connects to that, and the names that people realize, the tooks and the cottons, but also that were new new people for, for our players to meet. And that would enable a player who is a cozy player who might not be a huge Middle Earth kind of expert or stan, or may not have, terribly much engagement with Lord of the Rings, but it's very accessible. There's absolutely no need for you to be a kind of Tolkien expert or anything like that in order to enjoy the game.
You mentioned the art, which I think is one of the elements that will make this feel familiar even to people who might not be familiar with Middle Earth, because definitely in the art style, I recognize the lineage of cozy games before. I recognize the little bits of Animal Crossing. Like this one frame reminded me of Harvest Moon. I imagine y'all played with a lot of different art styles because this is the first Lord of the Rings game of this kind. What what were the conversations surrounding that? How did the team settle on this more like painting, whimsical style that we get to see now?
Yeah, I mean, the painting, obviously wanting a really kind of hand painted, handcrafted feel was a big thing for us, and um, we were influenced, I think quite a bit by the arts and crafts movement, both the American arts and crafts movement and the English one, and that whole because we felt that that was quite a hobbity kind of, art style, that idea about, everything needs to be beautiful or useful and very handcrafted, and you won't see anything in the game that looks like it had been machine made. It was, it's all these, the homes and the places you'll go, the Green Dragon, etc., look like they have been made by, by hobbits' hands, as Tolkien intended. And, I think for him, again, we were influenced so much by his, I think, desire to celebrate, the handmade and the handcrafted and the slowness of that. And it's kind of anachronistic saying it's like a handcrafted video game, because obviously it's computers, lots of zeros and ones. But as far as the look, we knew very early on that we were leaning into that. John Singer Sargent was certainly an artist that influenced, Steve quite a bit, and that almost that idea of being able to see the kind of brush strokes in the world, really, So yeah, painterly, I think, is definitely something that we leaned into very, very hard.
That made me quite emotional when because for those who aren't familiar, the American arts and crafts movement developed in response to mass production and to industrialization. And that delights me because that is deeply Tolkienian.
Yeah, yeah,
That is
yeah.
so painfully Tolkienian. So that's wonderful. What did it most feel like design-wise, the team most had to develop from scratch? Like, even if it's just a little area or a slice of Hobbit life, what required the most imagination?
Gosh, what an interesting question. Like the most imagination. I definitely think that, crafting our own story inside this world was something, that we were doing that was quite unique. The creation of the characters and relationships with a very big kind of cozy thing, obviously. Getting to know your neighbors and getting to know the villages, and we do that through the tales, which are our kind of like quests that you go on. The better you get to know the characters in the game, the more kind of things will open up for you.
I did love in one of the snippets released on the Tales of the Shire YouTube channel talking about the fellowship mechanic and how integral meals are to that. Because I do think the older I get, the more I'm like, I think life is about the little cards you write and the little dinners you host. I
Right?
do I do think that is the pillar of being a person. I know the game starts out with our little self-insert hobbit, which I'm thrilled about, by the way. I love spending an inordinate amount of time in a character creation screen.
Girl, you're gonna have a good time, you know,
I
like
am over the
yeah.
moon. But I know it starts out with our little self-insert hobbit, being brought into the Shire by Gandalf himself. Imagine.
Yeah.
Imagine. I'm sure because this takes place between The Hobbit and the Rings trilogy. How did y'all kind of weigh how many canon characters to include versus just alluding to last names, as you said earlier, versus like completely new characters? How did you strike that balance?
You know, we knew that people would want to be seeing some of these kind of really iconic characters, and obviously Gandalf is none more iconic than Gandalf. I think in our game, he's the one that everyone will like. If we talk about like the canon characters, he's certainly like that touch point for that. We didn't want to remake. It was about going, well, we need to give people something, but also, we also, we're really determined to be able to tell our own stories and create our own characters and give people the joy of discovery, I suppose, as an artist, and that's just Christmas.
One of my favorite bits on the Tales of the Shire channel was it was like they showed just a few seconds of the team developing the emotes for like some of the distinctive animations of the hobbits, and it was so giggly. Are there any other examples of points in the artistic process that felt especially giddy of like, oh, we found something really precious. Oh, that's really fun.
We would have our reviews, obviously, every week what the kind of team gets together and looks at each other's work, and that's a big part of our process at the studio, is feeding back and things like that. But as the world came together and more parts of it came together, just the kind of being able to walk around and by water, I think that was those moments where you're like, and, as it came to life, as we had the wind moving through the grass and the trees and as the life comes into your vision and just being able to kind of walk around in it, I think. Don't know if you've ever worked with animators before, but it's often like hilarious when you're watching them kind of work. You'll see often they'll have a little mirror at their desk, and making like these crazy faces into the mirror to make sure they're kind of like getting the right stuff, kind of like how would he move his eyebrows and lips and things like that. So the life that kind of gets breathed in through these, like just little small processes.
That's marvelous. Hey everyone, Anna Maria from the Editing Bay here. The podcast recording platform that I've always used has done something diabolical that it's never done before. It randomly and without any indication stopped recording Mhairead's audio and video. And so there are several minutes of footage at the end of me silently beaming at her while she talks and me asking her a couple questions, but nothing on the guest end. Now, my second to last question to her had been if she could ask the professor any question, what would it be? If you've been on the channel for a while, you know I ask all of my guests this question now. And she basically said she would ask him about his relationship to fairy. If you're familiar with his children's books, you know he was extremely fascinated and had a lot of adoration for the fae. And I'd also very quickly checked in on the co-op situation in Tales of the Shire. It looks like that's not a thing. But the last question was one of the most important questions in my opinion, so please allow me to shoddily try to reiterate what she so eloquently put. I was like, Mhairead, this piece of art is about to go out into the world. What do you hope resonates most with people, and what do you hope that they carry with them into their everyday material lives? And she had the loveliest answer. She basically said Tolkien's love for one another, love of food, of fellowship, of community, of looking after one another, and a love of nature. And on that lovely note, thank you so much to Mhairead for her time. I'm so excited to play the game. I'm excited for y'all to play the game and for us to chat about it. And I will see you all in the Shire.